Yo, what's going on, guys? Welcome back to a brand new video on the channel. Inside of today's video, we're going to be taking a look at the best gear for every single brawler in the game right now. So ever since the changes, if you guys were unaware, basically you can buy a gear now at power level 8. So that's actually before the power level 9 you need for the star power. So I feel like a lot of people are wondering what is the best gear for every single brawler, so you can actually prioritize. So starting off with Shelly then. So Shelly, of course, is pretty good with 3 gears, but in my opinion, the only really vital one would have to be the damage gear, because you get a lot of value with it, and you can play Shelly in and out of maps without bushes. With Nita, she's only pretty good with 2 gears, and that's going to be the speed and the damage gear. But for me, I'd actually prefer the speed gear out of all of them, because I pretty much play Nita on those grassy maps. With Cole, I think only 2 gears are really valuable for him. That's a reload speed gear and the damage gear. But for me, the reload speed gear, you guaranteed value a lot more frequently, so I prefer that one. With Brawl, he gets value out of about 4 gears, but I think out of all of them, I'd actually go with damage the most, mainly because he's a tank. He can actually benefit from that damage threshold a lot more, and of course, he's primarily used in heists, so the more damage, the better for Brawl. With Brock, he's good with pretty much 4 gears, but for me, again, I actually really like the reload speed gear the most, just because he has a pretty slow reload speed, so being able to put out more shots is very beneficial for Brock. With El Primo, again, you can get a lot of value out of a lot of gears with him, but for me, I think the most vital one has to be the speed gear, mainly because El Primo has one of the shortest ranges, so being able to catch up to the opponent is definitely really crucial for El Primo. So with Barley, I don't think he actually benefits from many gears in my opinion, so for me, it has to be the gadget charge gear, just because you get 4 slows. The biggest weakness with Barley is, of course, he gets taken down easily by assassins, so that gadget helps counteract that. And for me, also, like, the damage gear kind of gets cancelled out if you use medical use, so I'd rather just go with a gadget charge all of the time. Rico is another brawler that benefits from a lot of gears, but I think with all the recent changes, I actually think the gadget charge gear is the best one for him, mainly because you get the chance to use 4 tuning forks or 4 protective tunes, which is going to be really good at cancelling out those crow slows and all of those other adverse effects. Rosa, I think it's pretty clear what the best gear is for her. It has to be the speed gear, because if you combine this with her grow light gadget and the speed gear, it just makes her pretty much invincible, because you can charge your super up so much faster in this meta. So speed gear 100% is the best one for her. So with Jessie, it's a little bit of a weird one, because I don't think she really benefits the most out of all of these gears, but if I was to choose one, it'd have to be the damage gear, just because she already deals a lot of damage herself. So you can just imagine, once that is activated, you can just tap people so easily. So with Dynamite, I think it's pretty simple. I think the gadget charge gear is the best gear for him, mainly because you get the chance to use 4 satchel charges, which is by far the best thing about him. You can confirm 4 kills and just get so much pressure. So next up with Tick, it's actually a pretty hard one, because both of the gears, in my opinion, are definitely vital for him. I think since the changes, I still would probably go for shield, just because it costs less in coins, and also the thickhead won't get as much value anymore, because he's super squishy. You need that shield, but it's up to you, really, depending on how many coins you have. So next up we have 8-bit, and this is actually a really hard one. I get value out of 5 gears with 8-bit, maybe even the 6 with the brand new gadget gear. I think for me, you primarily play 8-bit in high strikes, so you're going to get the most value probably out of the damage gear out of all of these. So next up with Rico, I think it's quite clear, in my opinion, what the best gear is for him, and it has to be the extra gadget charge gear, mainly because Rico is very dependent of his gadgets. It allows him to survive with Bouncy Castle, and it also allows him to shred through tanks. So for me, you definitely need the gadget charge gear. So next up with Daryl, I feel like the damage gear is definitely essential for him, mainly because, again, I play Daryl a lot in heist. He is a tank, so he's going to get the most benefit from that damage threshold. With Penny, I don't feel like any gear is that important for her, but if I was to go with any, it would be out of speed and damage. Probably would go for speed more so than the other one, just because she lacks the range, so at least speed helps her catch up to the opponents. So Carl is another brawler which benefits out of a lot of these gears, but I think if you have to pick one, it'd have to be the gadget charge gear, just because Flying Hook is probably the main reason why Carl is so good. So being able to have the chance to have 4 of those will open up the door a lot for a lot of opportunities. So with Jackie, I think it's a pretty hard choice, because she actually gets value out of 3 gears, which are really good with her. But I think with the addition of the extra gadget charge gear, I think that's going to be the best one for her. So getting 4 boosts, you're able to catch up to the opponents a lot quicker. But definitely, if it's a grassy map, or if you just want to get that extra damage, you can go with the other gears, but I like the gadget charge gear the most. Gus is another brawler which benefits out of pretty much every single gear inside of the game, but since the addition of the gadget charge gear, you get 4 kooky poppers, and that's one of the main reasons why he's so good in the meta. So with Bo, it's quite clear which is the best gear for him. It has to be the reload speed gear, being able just to spam more shots out is the main reason why Bo's even viable in some places. So next up with Ems, it's pretty evident what the best 2 gears are for her. It's the speed and the damage gear, but I feel like Ems benefits out of speed way more than a lot of other brawlers, so you just have to get the speed gear. So next with Stu, I feel like he doesn't actually get too much value with all of the gears. They're okay with him, so that's why I really like the gadget charge gear the most with him, because being able to have the chance to have 4 speed turrets or 4 breakthroughs will really make a big impact on the game. With Piper, it's pretty simple what the best gears are for her. I think the damage gear is definitely the best one for sure. Ever since she got the damage buff in the last update, combine this with the damage gear, she can one-shot so many brawlers now, very deadly with this gear. So next we have Pam, and this one's actually a really tough one. She gets a lot of value out of all of the gears. If I was to pick one, it'd actually be the vision gear, because I feel like with Pam's mechanics, it's really strong with her, but I definitely wouldn't put you off going with the mythic gear as well. It's like having a second star power, and also the gadget charge gear as well, because Scrap Sucker is such a strong gadget. There's a lot of choice with Pam. So with Frank, you actually get a lot of value out of the health gear and the damage gear, because of course how tanky he is. He heal up so fast with the health gear, but for me, I think the damage gear is definitely the best for him, because a lot of the times you're taking damage with Frank, so you're able to get that damage threshold a lot. With BB, I feel like damage gear definitely makes the most sense out of all of them. Of course, she's super tanky, so you're going to get the most value there, and not only that, she deals a lot of damage, so combining that makes it so easy to just get a lot of value out of damage gear. With B, she has a lot of really strong gears, but for me it has to be the damage gear, mainly because of that big sting shot. You can amplify that even more when the damage gear is activated, but I definitely wouldn't shy you away from the extra gadget gear, just because Rattled Hive is actually pretty strong in this meta. So recently Nani got a big buff to her damage, but not only that, the increase in the supercharge rate has actually made it so the supercharge gear isn't needed. You literally need 5 hits to your super, and that gear doesn't change it anymore. So the only one which I really definitely recommend is a damage gear, because of course a high damage brawler with the damage gear is insane. So next up we have Edgar. So this one of course always going to be controversial, but for me I have to use these 2 gears. I think the addition of the extra gadget charge gear has really helped Edgar within the game, just because you can get 4 basically free supers, and that's of course the biggest thing that Edgar really struggled with cycling his supers. So for me, you have to get the gadget charge gear. With Griff, it's pretty simple. The most valuable gear by far has to be the reload speed gear, just because of course you're going to be able to get value out of that pretty much all of the time, but then a close second it has to be the damage gear or the health gear. So with Grom, I feel like there's only 2 gears that are really valuable with him. The damage gear is actually really good on Grom, mainly because as a thrower he can take advantage of the damage gear a lot easier, and I feel like he's really strong on Siege and Heist right now, so giving him that extra damage is of course really strong. And then the gadget charge gear as well, because the main reason why he's actually being used is to just destroy the Heist, Safe, and the Ike as well. So with Bonnie, it's pretty clear for me what the best gear is for her. It has to be the gadget charge gear, mainly because she of course is pretty slow, so given that increased movement speed allows her to make a lot more game changing plays and build up her super a lot more frequently. With Hank, it's pretty simple for me what the best gear is. It has to be the damage gear, mainly because he just deals some absurd amount of damage right now, so combine that with the damage gear, he's easily able to keep within the threshold as well, because of course you have to actually stop attacking to heal up. So for me, Hank has to have the damage gear. So with Mortis, he gets a lot of value out of all of the gears, to be honest, but if I was to pick one, it would actually have to be the gadget charge gear, mainly because you get 4 survival shovels, which will really allow him to cycle his super a lot more frequently, and also just to make a lot more plays. With Tara, she benefits a lot out of all of the gears, but if I had to choose one, it has to be the speed gear, just because you get a lot of value with it, being able to close the gap to the opponents and deal more damage with your cards. Of course, that's really good, but with the addition of the gadget charge gear as well, it's very strong, because she's a very gadget reliant brawler. With Jean, it's pretty simple. He gets the most value out of 2 of the gears. I think vision gear is a must for Jean. It completely complements his attack, so vision gear 100%, and of course the mythic gear as well, depending on whether you have the coins. So with Max, it's actually a really tough one, because you could actually have an argument with all 6 gears, but I think the damage gear is probably the safest one to have, and especially since that damage nerf, giving her that extra bit of damage is what she needs. So with Mr. P, it's pretty simple to me. He really lacks the damage right now, so the damage gear is going to be pretty good with him. or if you like using Mr. P to get some good vision, especially with his porters, vision gear is very essential for him as well. With Sprout, I feel like the supercharged gear is definitely essential for him. If you don't know, he actually takes 5 shots to get his super, but with this epic gear, he only takes 4 shots, so of course that's really good to cycle a lot more. But if you want to save the coins a little bit, then the gadget charge gear is very strong as well, because then you get 4 chances to actually replace your wall. With Byron, it's pretty simple. The damage gear is going to be the best one for him, mainly because you get value out of the extra healing when the damage gear pops, but not only that, of course, you get extra damage as well. But especially since the addition of this gadget charge gear, I just really love booster shots. You're able to cycle super quickly, so definitely recommend both of these. Squeak is pretty simple. The gadget charge gear is going to be the best one by far, because residue is one of the most toxic gadgets in the game, and especially since it got nerfed, but having the chance to block off an area 4 times in a match is insane. Gray is another brawler which benefits out of the new gadget charge gear a lot, because walking cane is one of the main reasons why he's so strong, so having the chance to have 4 of those is the main reason why he's so good. So next up with Willow, I feel like she doesn't get the most benefit out of gears unlike some other brawlers, but if I had to pick one, it has to be the damage gear, mainly because again, as a thrower, it's pretty easy to stay within that damage threshold, and of course she actually deals one of the most damage as a thrower as well, so it just makes sense. So next we have Doug. So he's one of the worst brawlers in the game right now, so he definitely needs the help of his gears. The speed gear is going to be very good for him because of course he really lacks the range, but I think he get the most value out of the damage gear because of course he's a healer, so he's going to get more value out of healing, but not only that, of course, damage as well. So with Spike, it's pretty simple. The mythic gear is the best gear for him by far, but it is 2,000 coins, so if you don't want to invest that many coins for him, then it's pretty safe to invest in damage gear or the vision gear. I really like the vision gear because of course combined with the curveball, it's just really strong. So with Crow, it's pretty simple. The gadget charge gear is going to be the best one for him, mainly because slowing toxin is one of the best gadgets in the game, so getting 4 uses of this is game changing. With Leon, I feel like it's pretty difficult because he has a lot of good gears to boost him up, but if I had to pick one, it has to be the speed gear, mainly because of course as a sneaky assassin, you need to close the gap and deal more damage the closer you are to the opponent, so speed gear just makes sense with him. With Sandy, there's only really 3 gears which benefit out of with him, but I think the one that you need 100% of the time is the speed gear, because I don't know, it just feels really good with Sandy. He can go in and out of bushes really quickly, and you pretty much only go Sandy on a bushy map. With Amber, it can seem pretty daunting because she has 8 gears to choose from, but if I have to pick one of them, it has to be the reload speed gear, just because she has a pretty slow reload speed herself, and of course she's pretty vulnerable once she actually gets rid of all of her ammo, so that has to be the best one. And then it's kind of up to you what you go as the other one, because a lot of them are going to get value with Amber. With Meg, it's pretty simple, especially since her rework. You're pretty much in mech all the time, so the damage gear, you're going to be able to get a lot of value out of that one. So with Chester, I think one gear is the most vital. It has to be the damage gear, just because if you cycle to your 4th bell and you have the damage gear popped, you can deal some insane damage, and it's definitely one of the main reasons why he's somewhat useful. With Gale, I feel like you don't really benefit out of most of these gears, but if I had to pick one, it has to be the damage gear, just because again, he's somewhat of a tanky-ish brawler, so you're able to get within that threshold quite easily. With Surge, I feel like you need the help of a lot of gears, but if I had to choose one, it'd actually be the speed gear, mainly because of course Surge is really slow, so you need that extra bit of speed to help you cycle your levels. With Colette, it's pretty simple for me. I think the extra gadget charge gear is going to be the best one for her, mainly because Gotcha is such a strong gadget, so having the 4 chances to heal it up and just be really annoying to your opponents is one reason why she's really good. With Lou, it's pretty simple. The supercharged gear allows him to get his super within 6 hits instead of 7, so he only needs 2 pieces of ammo to cycle his super, and it's the main reason why he's even used at all. Ruffs is a difficult one because again, doesn't get the most value out of many of these gears, to be honest. If I was to pick one, it has to be the damage gear, just because again, you can easily keep within that threshold with Ruffs because of his bouncing mechanic. With Bell, it's pretty simple. I think reload speed gear is one of the best gears in the game, so having this just enables you to of course put more pressure on and keep spamming those shots. With Buzz, it's pretty simple. The extra gadget charge gear is going to be the best one for him, mainly because his reserve gadget is so good. Getting 4 chances just to grapple around the map is probably really vital for him. With Ash, it's pretty simple. The damage gear is going to be the best one for him. Of course, being a tank, you're able to manipulate the damage gear a lot easier. And not only that, once your rage builds up, he's able to just deal so much damage because of this combination. With Lola, I feel like the reload speed gear is very essential, mainly because, again, she's a DPS type of brawler, so you want to be spamming out as much damage as possible. But if you want to save a little bit of coins, then the damage gear is also very strong as well. With Fang, it's pretty simple. The damage gear is going to be by far the best option to have. Of course, being able to get within a bigger threshold with your fresh kickstart power enables you to get back your super a lot easier, and it just really makes sense with Fang. With Eve, it's pretty simple. Quadruplets is going to be the best gear for her, but it does cost 2,000 coins, but it's definitely worth it. Having an additional spawner is really good at pushing your opponents back. But if you don't have the coins for that, you can easily just go for maybe the damage gear or the reload speed gear. With Janet, you're not going to get a lot of value out of the gears with her because she's just pretty trash overall. But ever since the damage nerf, I think the damage gear is essential for her because she really can't keep up in this meta. So in terms of the best gears for Otis, it's actually pretty hard because he gets value out of vision gear, the supercharged gear. But if I have to pick one, it'd have to be the damage gear because, again, if you're pretty low and close to your opponents, you can super them and then take advantage of that damage gear and shred them. So next up with Sam, it's pretty simple. The damage gear is going to be the best one for him. Of course, being a tank, he's going to be able to take advantage out of that the most, and he also gets the benefit from the extra super damage as well with the damage gear. So with Buster, it's pretty simple. I think the addition of the extra gadget charge gears actually made him even stronger in the meta. 4 slow-mo replays makes him very strong, but if you don't have the coins, because of course it's a brand new gear, then the speed gear is very strong with him because, of course, with a tank, you're able to get a lot more pressure. So next up, we have Mandy. I feel like the damage gear is definitely the best gear for her, mainly again because she's a sniper. She can easily stay within that damage gear threshold, and of course she has very long range, so people can't even get close to her if she just has damage gear popped all of the time. And of course it just amplifies the damage of the super as well, so it just means infinite damage with Mandy. So with RT, it's actually pretty hard to decide which the best gear is for him. Probably would go for the gadget charge gear, but it's not really essential. But to be on a safe side, health gear is definitely really good for him because he's on the kind of tankier side. So next up we have Maisie, and I definitely think gadget charge gear is one of the most essential gears for her because, of course, the combination with disengage and her super is the main reason why she's even a threat most of the time. So if you have 4 chances to make that combination, you're very deadly throughout the game. Next up, we have Cordelia. So Cordelia, he gets a lot of benefits from some of the gears, but I think since this extra gadget charge gear came into the game, 4 chances to mute the opponent has actually made him one of the better brawlers in the game right now. So definitely get the gadget charge gear. And lastly, for the best gear for every single brawler, we have Pearl, and I think the damage gear is the best one for her by far because if you wait to that maximum heat and then of course take some damage, the damage gear will just completely shred people. So let me know which you think is the best gear for every single brawler. Let me know if I made any mistakes, but I think this should be pretty accurate. Don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe, and I'll see you guys next time.